History as we know it is about to change. But before I explain, hello my friends, I am Joey from the Pre-Columbian Gentleman. On this channel, we talk about pre-Columbian art and the amazing cultures that made it. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the whole story of the discovery of America. So we know that Columbus discovered America in 1492, he landed in the Bahamas, the whole story, right? Well, that was actually proven that he's not the first person to discover America. The Vikings were here earlier. They landed in Newfoundland about 1000 to 1100 AD. We found the settlement, the proof, it's a done deal, right? Columbus was not the first person. But what if I told you that there's another culture that actually discovered the Americas 1,000 years earlier? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the greatest ancient sailors of all time, the people of Polynesia, who have been navigating open oceans for 3,000 years. So what's my proof? Okay, well, check this out. So this is a figure that comes from the Ixtlan del Rio area of Nayarit, Mexico, 100 BC to 250 AD. Now, these are abstract figures that they don't look like people, but they describe what they wore, the jewelry they had, and look at the facial tattoos, you guys. The facial tattoos. Okay, that's the important clue here. And what do those look like? What other culture has tattoos like that? So these pictures are pictures of the Maori people who have very, very similar facial tattooing. And so what I'm thinking, okay, number one, the people of Maori are only go back 700 years, but the people of Polynesia have been tattooing their face similarly for the last 3,000 years. So my thinking is that these open ocean navigators could have very easily gone to the Pacific coast of Mexico during ancient times, which is 100 BC to 50 AD, to fit into this narrative, because otherwise they would not have been in contact with these people. Again, and then you see the tattooing on the faces of these sculptures. So here's what I'm thinking. Okay, the Marquesa Islands is the closest point to West Mexico, and it's 3,100 nautical miles. So that's a long distance, right? But we know that the people of Polynesia have been navigating open oceans for thousands of miles, because that's the distance between their islands in that Polynesian island area. So could they have gone a little bit further? It's possible, right? They had double hull canoes. They could travel thousands of miles. They would collect water in the hulls, and then they could also fish for food and for subsistence. So another bit of proof. So we know that the people of the ancient people of Ecuador, the Manabi, the Bahia, and the Chorrera culture, they would navigate the Pacific coast and go to and visit the West Mexico. We know that there was contact. And how do we know that? Because of figures such as this figure here that show very similar clothing. They have these breeches and these short shirts. The clothing itself is very similar, but also the designs on that are very similar. And so that kind of shows that these cultures could have possibly gone up the Pacific coast, and that's 2,600 miles. I'm sorry, 2,400 miles. So what I'm saying is that if those people from Ecuador can go 2,400 miles up the coast, could the people of Polynesia have traveled 700 miles further and visited the west coast of Mexico? Another thing that's interesting that we know that proves that the people of Ecuador visited West Mexico during ancient times is that we found stirrup spouts that they date about 1,300 BC. In Colima, Mexico, but the earlier stirrup spouts, they're about 200-300 years earlier from Ecuador. So we're seeing that some of the pottery is similar, some of the clothing is similar, and we see that in the figures. And so a link has definitely been there. And we do know that the people of Mesoamerica had these vast trade routes. We know that the Pacific and also the Caribbean coast were huge. They had these huge trade routes. And then we also know that there were even land trade routes. We know that the people in Guatemala would travel by land from southern Guatemala and bring jade, they would bring cacao, and they would bring macaws, live macaws, all the way up through Central America, through Mexico, into Utah, and they would trade with the people of Utah. So that's, I think, about 2,400 miles right there. So these trade routes were indeed being used. So my theory is that these facial tattoos on this Nayarit figure prove that there was some contact between ancient tribesmen of Polynesian descent, and they traveled there through open oceans. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, it sounds reasonable, right? I mean, these were the greatest oceanic travelers, navigators. And how did they? Oh, also, they navigated by oral tradition and by the stars. So they very well could have gone and kept going and explored there, and they would have been very comfortable traveling these lengths. And I think the currents do favor they favor that, the way they translate, the way they go from the Polynesian chain into to Mexico, to where we see there. So I think it's very possible, and I think that these figures, they prove my theory that this could have very well happened. So I don't know, you guys. What do you guys think? Do you think the Polynesian people were the first discoverers of America? Leave it in the comments. Otherwise, hit the like and follow button for some more great pre-Columbian content. Cheers, and happy traveling, my friends.